Welcome to the Providence College podcast. My name is Joe Carr. Generations of Providence College alumni have served with valor and distinction in the United States military, and their stories reflect some of the college's highest ideals: selflessness, fidelity, and courage among them. We dedicate a podcast interview each November to one of these stories, and today it is our pleasure to introduce you to Captain Matthew Lombardo from the class of 2011. Captain Lombardo is currently serving as a helicopter pilot in support of Operation Inherent Resolve as a member of New Jersey National Guard, and he joins us today from Kuwait. Hello, Matt. Thank you for taking the time to.
Thank you for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we surely do appreciate this and appreciate all that you're doing to serve our country and to keep us safe. And your story is a great one, and it's not atypical. As we have learned over the years of doing these kinds of interviews, it's really something that we who care about Providence College take a great deal of pride in, and that is the service in various forms that our students and our alumni perform. So thank you for that. What brought you to Providence College in the first place? It's always a good place to start. You grew up in New Jersey, where you live now.
So I grew up in New Jersey. My uncle's a Providence College alumni, class of '93. So I always heard stories about PC growing up, and I visited Providence while I was in high school and instantly fell in love with it. I love the sense of community, the camaraderie, the reputation, both on the academic side and the reputation of the ROTC program there. So those were kind of the driving factors in my application at Providence.
When did you decide that a military career was likely in your future?
So I grew up in North Jersey, just outside of New York City. So 9/11 played a huge role in that. We could, you could see the smoke from the towers bellowing from my town, and it was kind of then and there where I determined that I wanted to join the military and try to make a difference in the world.
Also, some relatives? You have some family history of military service too, right?
I do.
That might have been a factor.
Yes, sir. So my grandfather on my mother's side is a Army veteran. My grandfather on my father's side is a Korean War veteran, and then I have an uncle that was in the Air Force.
And when, aside from your service in the National Guard, you're also a police officer. So these things are, this is often a common link, right? Military service and law enforcement. Is that reflected in your family history too? Or when did you pick up on that part of your career?
It is. So my father was a police officer. My mother was a nurse. I always growing up, I always kind of had that sense of service instilled in me. And they do mirror each other in a lot of ways. And fortunately, I'm able to do both careers and do what I love.
What is it about service? Let's go from the sort of biographical stuff to something a little bit deeper kind of quickly. And I apologize for that, but how does it make you feel when you, in your work as a police officer or as a National Guard captain, benefit somebody else? What's that like?
Well, I don't think there's a better feeling in the world than being able to go out there and help someone, especially when it's when it's part of your job and your day-to-day duties. I'm just blessed to be able to get paid to be put in those situations. Like I said, I wouldn't want to do anything else in the world.
Tell us a little more about your experiences as a student at PC. What was your academic field of study?
I was a business management major.
Who were some of the professors that influenced you? People who are professors or people in other parts of the college environment who had a big influence on you?
There's too many to list in terms of who influenced me while I was at Providence College. I want to say the biggest influence that I had there was Sergeant Major Gary Fortunato, who unfortunately passed away this past spring. But he was a huge influence on not only me, but everyone who was part of the ROTC program in recent history, and so many other students that were not part of the ROTC program. He was definitely a staple on campus.
Yeah, that's for sure. Several of us have had the opportunity to go to the commissioning ceremonies, and you would know more about this, but there's this coin that the new officers give to somebody who influenced them? And I think that Sergeant Major Fortunato probably had about 1,000 of those from.
I would definitely say he did. He had an extremely distinguished career in the military, and even once he retired from active duty, he still continued to serve every day by, helping us grow and learn as leaders and cadets.
Can you tell us a little more about Sergeant Major Fortunato? And we want to focus on him because he is going to be honored specifically on Veterans Day here at PC as part of this year's commemoration of Veterans Day. What was it about him? Personality traits, characteristics. How did he inspire so many?
He just had such a glowing personality. Like you couldn't be in a room with him and not want to instantly talk to him and start a conversation and get to know him more. He was also a driving factor in me applying to and ultimately choosing PC. He's also a Jersey boy, which helps, but no, he just had such a distinguished career, so much experience. He was such a humble man, and he always gave it his all to help others and to build the program to what it is today. So he definitely deserves that honor and that distinction.
So you met him when you were considering PC. Is that how that worked?
Yes, sir. So I met him my senior year of high school when I came up from my visit to Providence College.
You mentioned his experiences. How important is that in somebody in a position like that in inspiring and educating cadets? Because he had so much real world military experience, credibility, among other things, because he had lived it and experienced it and done it successfully.
Absolutely. So his experience is what we, as future officers and even current officers, that just helps us in our decision-making process, in how we treat and manage our own soldiers. I can't even speak to how important he was as a mentor to myself and all my classmates.
Is there anything about the Providence College experience? Oh, I shouldn't ask it that way. Let's turn that around a little bit. What is it about the Providence College experience that you draw on in your leadership of others and in your service, both in the military and as a police officer?
So the Providence College experience, as a police officer and in the military, I often find myself relying on those Dominican values. Specifically, we've been talking about service a lot during this interview. That and the camaraderie, the alumni association, the network of friars in this country, it's amazing. I've been halfway across the country and have ran into someone. Somehow Providence College gets brought up, and you would think that even though we haven't met, you would think that we were best friends for like 10 years before running into each other. So that kind of sense of camaraderie and community is it's amazing, and I don't see that with other colleges.
Besides studying and your work in ROTC, what other things did you do and enjoy when you were a PC student?
So I enjoyed playing intramural hockey at PC. That was one of the highlights, and just traveling the local area, going to the beach, going down to Newport, getting to know Rhode Island. ROTC kept it pretty busy, so.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's a big commitment, and we should not overlook that. The students who come here and do commit to the ROTC program are really taking on a lot, and it's admirable. So class of 2011, you had 1 year of Coach Lehman running the hockey program. I suspect as a hockey player, hockey fan, and a Friar, you must have been pretty thrilled with the 2015 NCAA championship.
Yes, sir. That was definitely awesome.
And you mentioned in our connections as we got ready for this, you still try to play some, I suspect, when you're in New Jersey, and you still put on the skates now and then?
Yep, there's a couple pickup leagues in my area, so still trying to get on the ice. Not a lot of ice over here, though, unfortunately.
Wouldn't think so. So when you are finishing the ROTC program, obviously you have a variety of options, and you chose to become a helicopter pilot, and you went to Fort Rucker Alabama for your initial training there. What was it that pointed you in that direction?
I always enjoyed aviation, and I found it an interesting field to be in. When I was deciding what I wanted to commission into, I was between either aviation or infantry. And one of the factors was that, aviation is something I could take to I could better take to the outside world. It translates to another career, as many of the factors as being an infantry officer. But I figured, what better job in the Army than flying helicopters? And fortunately, I was able to get selected for aviation.
In your current role, you have some command responsibilities. Can you describe that in general, how you are set up structurally with what you do?
So I'm right now, I'm in charge of a aviation detachment. So we have approximately 100 soldiers, and we fly missions here. We perform maintenance. So it's essentially equipping, manning, and training our guys to come here and do the jobs that we signed up to do.
How many times have you been deployed?
So this is my first deployment to the Middle East. Prior to this, I worked the Southwest border during Operation Phalanx in Arizona, and then I also did a humanitarian aid mission down in the Dominican Republic called Beyond the Horizons.
So Operation Phalanx, that is, you described that as a counter-drug task force?
So we do have a specific counter-drug task force. Each state has one as part of the National Guard. Operation Phalanx was a federalized mission where we deployed National Guard soldiers to the Southwest border, and we supported the Department of Homeland Security. A lot of what we did was surveillance and combating narcotics trafficking down there, though.
I see. What is life like on a military base in the age of coronavirus? Obviously, you have command and discipline structures in place, so I suspect if somebody says wear a mask, everybody's wearing a mask, but still must be complicated because I suspect you have civilian personnel. And let's answer the question.
So
what is it?
It's not much different from back home. We have a lot of the same restrictions. We utilize PPE. We try to maintain social distancing as well as we can within the scope of our duties and our job. A lot of facilities that are typically open are closed. So it's really, we're feeling all the restraints that everyone back home is feeling as well.
Very complicated time everywhere, isn't it? And certainly with all the important work you have to do to layer on restrictions and complications like that must be a challenge for sure. Tell us more about the New Jersey National Guard. How large an operation is this, and what sorts of services does the Guard from New Jersey provide, and more about deployments?
So the New Jersey Army National Guard, in terms of aviation, we have a assault helicopter battalion. So we have Blackhawk helicopters. We also have a security and support company, which flies Lakotas, which are used primarily for surveillance and general utility missions. And then we have a King Air, which is a fixed wing plane. So we have roughly in aviation, you're looking at around 500 soldiers in New Jersey. With the op tempo, recently the operations tempo, we tend to deploy about every other year to once every 4 years. We're sending a unit, whether it be a company or a detachment. We're sending a unit somewhere to go do their mission.
Do you remember Father Cuddy?
I do.
Father James Cuddy, chaplain. Have you heard about his? He is now commissioned as a lieutenant in the Navy Reserve.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
About a little more than a year ago, he started with this and went to officer development school in Newport and has been commissioned. He served deployment for a couple of months back toward the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak. Remember the two hospital ships, one that was on the West Coast and one on the East Coast?
Sir.
He was sent to off Los Angeles to serve as a Navy chaplain, and he also serves the Navy community in Newport as a chaplain too. So he has great stories to tell about that, and his service that he decided to undertake here, a little bit later than you did, also inspiring and meritorious too. So another example of that, and I'm sure he'll be pleased to hear about your story too.
That's awesome. Our chaplain here is has been playing a huge role in increasing morale and helping soldiers through this, because the soldiers here are having going through the same struggles as people back home, in terms of isolation and everything. And our chaplain that's on the ground with us here has been phenomenal and a great morale booster.
It's important service, isn't it?
Absolutely.
When you're home in New Jersey, you serve as a police officer. Tell us about that job, where you are, and a little bit more about what you do there.
So I'm in patrol in Paramus, New Jersey. It's about 8 miles west of New York City, and pretty much go to work and answer calls for service.
Something you also planned for a while? Is that the case? Is that what you expected you would be doing when you were a youngster?
That was kind of my original plan before I decided to join the military, and fortunately, I was able to succeed with both careers. So, you
mentioned briefly your grandfathers who served in the military, and an uncle too, right? So
yes, sir.
Some lineage that relates to military service. Did you know both these grandfathers? Did they talk to you about their military service? What were their stories like?
I did. So my one grandfather, that was the Korean vet in the Air Force, he really enjoyed his time in the Air Force. He would always kind of bust my chops a little bit about going Army as opposed to Air Force. But once he returned from the war, he came home. He actually used his GI Bill to go to dental school, became a dentist. And then same thing with my grandfather. He still meets up with his friends from his days in the Army. So,
do you ever cross paths with or keep in touch with other people who were also ROTC cadets when you were, who are serving in the military? I suspect you can't say much specifically about what they're doing, but are there others from that cohort who are also serving and thriving and enjoying their military careers?
Yeah, so there's 2 more ROTC alumni that are a couple bases away from me right now, from the New York Guard. We have a very tight-knit community, so I stay in touch with the other 12 officers that I commissioned with in 2011. We're all looking forward to catching up and getting together for the 10-year reunion next summer. But yes, we do have a pretty tight network. So
that would be great. God willing that we're able to have a reunion in person. That would be a wonderful thing, and for you all to be able to be here too. What would you expect with respect to your military career, Matthew? Do you expect to continue with it? What would be normal progression from here?
I definitely intend to continue until retirement. So I love what I do every day. And until that changes, I have no intention of getting out of the military.
While you are in Kuwait now, you would not really, as I understand it, have a handle on exactly when this deployment might end, right? So you've been there for a year, but you've got ways to go still, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't really talk dates in terms of dates and locations of when and where we're going. But hopefully we'll all be back soon, and we'll all be back safely.
An incredible commitment, that's for sure, to do this kind of service. It's one of the other things you said you like doing is outdoor sports, right? So I take that to mean hunting and fishing.
Hunting, fishing, anything, ATVs, pretty much anything outside.
I'm sure you'll be looking forward to getting back to that when you can, and
definitely,
back to your friends and your family and your job in New Jersey. But in the meantime, you certainly seem to be fulfilled and enthusiastic about what you're doing, which is a great thing, right?
Yes, sir.
We surely do appreciate it, Matthew, and we thank you for your time today. It's been nice catching up with you and learning more about your story and your commitment to our country and its people and to your community in New Jersey. It's laudable, and I think that it makes all of us who care about Providence College and the people of our community feel good knowing that you're doing these wonderful things. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us from the Providence College podcast. Our guest today, Captain Matthew Lombardo from the New Jersey National Guard class of 2011. For our producer, Chris Judge, I'm Joe Carr. Until next time.